If you're thinking about starting a pastured poultry enterprise in 2019, one of the things you're going to want to know is what do the economics look like? You're also going to want to know how to market that pastured poultry that you do raise. Two topics coming up in this episode. Welcome to Grass-Fed Life. I'm your host, Diego, D-I-E-G-O. Today's episode is a special episode of the podcast. It's airing on a different day. It's airing on a Friday. Surprise. For the bonus episode today, what you're going to hear is the audio from a presentation that farmer Paul Greive of Primal Pastures did at one of the PV conferences that I hosted a few years ago. The subject of this presentation is pastured poultry and marketing it. Paul's going to run through the economics of pastured poultry and what it looks like, and he's going to give you 10 plus innovative ways to market the pastured poultry that you do raise. As you listen to this, keep in mind that this is the audio from a live visual presentation. So if you want to see what Paul was talking about, be sure to check out the video of this presentation, which is available on my YouTube channel. Just search for @DiegoFooter on YouTube. You'll find this video. But to make it easy, I've also linked to it in the notes for this episode. So just scroll down on your phone and you'll see a link to the video. And if you enjoy what you hear during this episode and you want to learn more from Paul and Darby and myself, be sure to check out the Growing Your Farm Business Mastermind Workshop coming up at Paul's Farm, Primal Pastures, this March. For that workshop, you're going to get a rare behind-the-scenes look at what they do at Primal Pastures. Yes, they host farm tours. Yes, they host workshops, but they've never hosted anything like this, where Paul himself will be doing a full day of teaching about how they do what they do at Primal Pastures. How do you manage an operation that does several hundred thousands of dollars in sales when you're just selling meat? Keep in mind, they didn't start that way. They started very small with a $2,000 investment. If you want to learn how they grew it and how they manage it now that they are big, check out that workshop, the Growing Your Farm Business Mastermind. Learn more about that at grassfedlife.co. And I hope to see you out here in my home, Southern California, this March. With that, let's jump right into it with Paul Greive of Primal Pastures.
Of information to get through and not too much time, but first of all, thank you guys for coming. My name's Paul Greive. I'll be doing the talk today. So I have the title right now as Gasoline on the Fire, which hopefully is not too anti-permaculture. Obviously, that's not a good thing you really want to do, but the idea of gasoline on the fire is combining two things that are both really good independently, but when you put them together, it just creates an explosion in a really, really good way. And so we're going to talk about pastured poultry, hopefully for like the first half-ish of the talk, and then we're going to talk about guerrilla farm marketing for the second half of the talk. Last year at this conference, I presented on something I called guerrilla farm marketing, which was nothing more than all the mistakes that we've made kind of boiled down into 13 proven strategies that work for us marketing our farm. I'll go into a little bit more about what we do, but that was really well received. Anybody who was there for that last year? Awesome, super cool. So had a lot of questions, tons of follow-up, and I thought, I might as well combine that with this pastured poultry deal. So there's like two courses in one, and we're going to fly. I don't really like to save questions to the end, so if you've got a question, throw up a hand. If I'm feeling like I got to keep going and jiving, then I'm just not going to answer your question. I'll try to tell you, ask it later or whatever, but feel free to just ask as we go. What do we do? I operate a pastured livestock farm 68.6 miles from this location in Murrieta, California. We raise everything from pastured poultry to pastured sheep. We've got the livestock guardian dogs. We do a little bit of small-scale dairy, which we really haven't started yet, and we're just starting to get into pastured pigs as well. It's really, really a small farm. It was started completely by my family just 2 years ago. So we're completely learning this whole process, which is good and bad. So the reason why it's good is because I'm approaching this from a perspective that maybe you are as well. If you haven't done this for a long time, I'm in the midst of making a lot of the same mistakes still. It's bad because I may not be able to answer all of your questions in detail. I don't have 30 years of doing this. So bear with me a little bit, but hopefully it's kind of a unique and fresh perspective on this whole thing. The bottom left picture is probably confusing unless I explain it. So we just started doing FedEx shipping. So we ship frozen meats all over Southern California. Since that's where our farm is, our goal is to feed our neighbors. So we ship via FedEx, all recyclable throughout Southern California. Okay, so what's our story? Basically, I got to go through this fast. It was 3 years ago when my family was sitting around and we'd all kind of come to this whole health food thing from different angles. But we said, you know what? The food that's available in the grocery sucks. So whether it's from Whole Foods or Mother's Market or anywhere else, I don't like what they're doing with their animals. I don't like the practices, the health. I just had a new baby, so I was really double checking the things that I believed in with my food. And so we said, well, we've got a 1/4 acre of grass for a yard in our backyard. Why don't we try raising some birds for ourselves? And it was kind of a complete joke. We were just going to do one batch, like Salatin style, one batch. Everybody familiar with Salatin? Anybody not familiar with Salatin? All right, I'll explain it. We decided, let's do one batch Salatin style and just raise some for ourselves or whatever. We have a pretty big family. So we did 50 birds. We ordered the chicks. We put them outside on grass. Didn't really read a whole lot, so we did like the opposite thing of, instead of sitting behind a book, we like just ordered chicks and started going for it. Put a couple posts up on Facebook, and all 50 chicks sold out within 2 weeks. So they were still like this big. We'd collected the money up front, the deposits were already taken, and it was like, oh my gosh, what just happened? The next time we decided to order 100, same thing happened, sold out of all 100. And so we're starting to think, okay, maybe there's a real business opportunity here. At the same time, we had a waiting list of like 110 families that we'd collected on our email marketing thing that we put together. And so we thought, all right, this might be a real deal. So we kept growing the business, 200 birds, 400 birds, 800 birds, 1,000 birds, and it really started to take set. So in April of 2013, I started thinking about leaving my job. I was working as a certified public accountant. Desk job, super boring. Don't do it. I'm sorry if you're doing it right now. But I left my job and just said, I'm going to go for it in like June of 2013. It's been nothing but a wild and crazy ride since then, but we've had some really cool stuff happen. So just in the first 2 years of farming, we've already generated $500,000 in sales and revenues off of our farm, which is pretty cool for a young farm. We're supporting my family and my brother's family are both fully supported off the farm with we don't have any outside jobs, so we're doing full-time farming. And then we have 2 other family members that do part-time work for us as well. It's been a crazy ride. I wish I could go into our whole story, but I got to get to the meat and potatoes here. So this is my family. This is one of our old farms. We just moved on to a really pretty 40-acre farm property in Murrieta. We've got a bunch of other kind of cattywampus selection of different farm properties ranging from like 5 acres up to some other 40-acre properties. And then we partner farm with 2 beef operations. We basically buy live animals from them. We have them slaughtered, butchered, USDA, and then we put that in as part of our basket and sell it direct to consumer. That's one thing I should have mentioned. We do all direct to consumer selling. So no grocery stores, no restaurants. We also don't do any farmers markets. Everything we do is online, collected online, up front, and then we FedEx about 90% of our orders out here in Southern California. One other thing I'll mention is we did just sell our first franchise of the company as well. So Primal Pasture Southern California was the original company. Now we just sold Primal Pasture Central California. So they'll be doing a very similar thing up there, and they'll be shipping within the Central California region. We could talk all about FedEx, but I don't think you're here for that. So we're starting with Pastured Poultry. I think if you're here, you probably understand what Pastured Poultry is. I'm not going to go into how to raise chickens, different production methods, or anything like that. I'm talking about the economics of pulling Salatin-style tractor pens. In case you don't know what a Salatin-style tractor pen is, it is a 10-foot by 12-foot by 2-foot high, completely caged-off box with no floor on it. You raise between 75 and 90 birds within that box. Every day it's pulled to a new spot on the pasture. More or less makes sense? Raise your hand if that's totally lost you. Okay. Okay. It's kind of the normal way that Pastured Poultry is done in the United States and abroad, actually. There's a lot of people doing it this way abroad. So how does this all break down? I'm going to give you my opinion on stuff and my experience. This may or may not jive with what you've read in the books. Maybe it does. I've read a lot of Salatin. He's pretty much who we based our whole poultry operation off of. So when I provide these numbers, hopefully they're useful to you. I'm not a real big up in the clouds guy, so I'm going to give you direct, exact numbers that I think are going to be close for you. Okay, number one question that I get, how many birds can I run on my property? This is kind of the gold standard that works for us, and it's worked for a lot of people throughout the rest of the country. So 500 birds per acre per year at one pass. What does one pass mean? That means you're grazing that one specific spot one time per year. Now, I think pretty much every piece of soil in the U.S. can probably be able to handle one pass. Typically, what gets you up into that 2 or 3 passes per year is the better your grass is, the better your pasture, the more moisture that you get, and the longer your growing season is, the more passes that you can do. There's a little bit where you need to be careful of over putting too much nitrogen down, but we're not going to get into all that. Again, this is the economics. So 500 birds per acre per year if you're doing one pass. So just start thinking about your property or your dream property and start keeping these numbers in the back of your mind. How much does it cost to start up a pasture poultry farm? Well, one of the beauties of this thing is it's actually really cheap compared to starting pasture beef or lamb or any other thing. It's fairly cheap. So the pens, you can make your own. I'm saying $400 a pop. If you got scrap wood, if you're reading Salatin, you understand, make it out of cheap stuff. It's not going to last very long no matter what you do, so try to make your first few pretty cheap. This is including waterers, feeders, all that stuff. So about $400 a pop is what you should be able to do that for. If you're scrapping, you're going to have to build a brooder, right? So that's where the chicks stay for the first 2 to 3 weeks, depending on your weather. They're going to need to be inside in that climate-controlled environment. We use the bright red heat lamps so that they can sleep real good at night and they stay real warm. You're probably anywhere between $500 to $1,500 for a little startup style brooder, although I've seen them done for like $50. So I'm shooting a little bit high on some of this stuff. Processing equipment, that's a tricky one. You may or may not have that expense, right? So with processing equipment, we started out by just buying a plucker. If you're familiar with sort of the poultry deal, a plucker looks like a wash tub, like a washing machine, spins around real fast, and it knocks the bird's feathers off. If you're only going to buy one piece of processing equipment, buy the plucker. That thing is like gold. So if you've had, if you ever grew up on a farm and you've plucked a chicken by hand or whatever, you will die when you watch a plucker work. It's 4 birds in, 10 seconds in the plucker, and they're out completely defeathered. So that's super, super efficient. Another option, so if you were to completely scrap processing and you said, I don't have enough manpower or enough capital to get this going, there are a lot of places that will process birds for you. It just so happens in Southern California, I know USDA processors are really, really hard to come by, so we did all this from scratch. So I was processing birds just 2 days ago. We're still doing everything by hand in the backyard. So I'm looking at 2,100, probably kind of the baseline that you can get into some of this simple stuff on. I'm guessing you probably have a credit card that'll go up that high, so you can float that for a little while if you need to. Yeah, so he's asking about disposal of feathers. Typically, we're using every last piece of that bird. So everything is sold, the livers, the hearts, all the organs except for the guts. The guts are fed to the livestock guardian dogs because we have 10 of them, and it's a pretty expensive feed bill. The only thing that's not directly consumed would be the feathers, and those compost pretty well. They just need to go into the compost pile in pretty thin sheets, and so put some dirt or whatever on top of it, feathers, dirt, feathers, kind of do that. But they do compost. All right, how much profit are we making per bird? We don't talk about profit enough in permaculture. It's not really sustainable unless it's economically sustainable, right? So let's talk about the profit per bird. I have a cost equation. I'm not a math wizard, but I did do some finance in undergrad and graduate, so I'll try to not make this stupid. But you've got to take your feed price per pound. For me, that's about 50 cents per pound. I'm talking your delivered final cost. 50 cents per pound, I'm getting the Modesto Millings, really fancy soy and GMO-free or certified organic feed. It can go down all the way to probably 15 or 20 cents a pound for the really basic stuff. But start thinking about your feed price per pound. If you have no idea, trying to sell to a high-end market, kind of think about that 50 cents a pound as sort of your average price. Times 15. You don't really need to know why you times it by 15, but that's how many pounds of grain a bird's basically going to consume. And then you add 650 to that. So 650 is going to encapsulate, for me, kind of the average of the chick cost. I've got a whole breakdown of it. I'll go through how that 650 comes up. So that's what it's going to cost you to produce one bird, other than all your startup expenses and stuff like that. Yes? I'm talking about Freedom Rangers. Thank you for mentioning that. So a lot of people do Cornish Cross. We started with Cornish Cross, which is kind of the factory breed, and I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that, but for us, you kind of watch a Cornish Cross die from eating too much, or die from looking up, or die from looking to the side, and we started saying that this is kind of pitiful, really. So we use Freedom Ranger, which is actually out of Pennsylvania. We ship them all the way from Pennsylvania to Southern California. They take about 11 weeks to grow out, but they grow out really, really nice. They're kind of a hybrid. Still got a lot of meat on them, but they've got more of that thigh meat as opposed to tons of breast meat. They forage really well, and they actually eat a little bit less grain to grow out to full size than Cornish Cross do. So depending on your land situation, it can be a more profitable bird. Okay, jumping down to the next equation. Super simple, but one that we don't think about enough. Profit equation, your revenue minus your cost. So what are you able to sell that bird for in your market? I can get $25 to $29 per bird. If you're not in Southern California, or if you're in a different market, you might not be able to do that. Actually, you probably will not be able to do that. So think about what your revenue per bird is going to be. If you're selling direct to consumer, you're going to be able to get up into the 20s. If you're selling through a wholesaler, through a grocery store, any of that stuff, you're not getting anywhere near the 20s. So just start thinking about that. I've got a couple examples of how this all shakes out. So the one on the left is our cost formula that we were just looking at. It's the price per feed times 15 plus the 650. So I've got 15 pounds of grain at 50 cents a pound, 750 into the feed on that bird. Chicks, right now they're running me about $1.50. Pretty cheap. They're way cheaper than hatching my own, that's for sure. Processing, I put in $3 for processing. I've done this for a while. I've factored in everything I can think of, and we're at about $3. That's after buying the equipment, right? So those are two separate things. That's for me paying some labor, paying myself some labor. Don't forget to pay yourself when you get to a certain size. And then $2 miscellaneous. The only thing that's miscellaneous numbers definitely not including is your land cost. Land cost varies way too much for me to be able to tell you what your land lease, or maybe you own the property, or maybe somebody's letting you borrow it. I don't have land factored into this at all. So when you look at the bottom line numbers, make sure you're doing your own subtraction on that. But $2 miscellaneous, that's catching a lot of different random things. So $14. This is actually pretty close to my actual real life total cost per bird. Now, profit, very simple equation. Let's say I'm able to sell that $14 bird for $20, take out the 14, and I made $6. That's pretty simple math. Everybody cool with that? Okay, remember those numbers because we're going to move on. Yes? My shipping, that's not my real sales number. So my real sales number is 29 if you go on the website right now, and shipping's sort of built into that. Okay, profit equation. So this is a good one to write down as well if you're kind of serious about doing this. This one's a little bit not quite as straightforward, but it's really not that confusing. So how many acres are you working? Times 500. Remember, that's how many birds per acre you can do on one pass. Times the number of passes that you're able to do on your land. Times your profit per bird. All that minus your startup costs. And that's not really even fair. That's being pretty conservative because you should take your startup costs over maybe 4 or 5 years, right? You shouldn't amortize all that, but forget that. Let's just look at it in 1 year. And then we got the shit factor. Divide the whole thing by 2 because that's just the way it goes down in farming. Okay? I'll hold this up here for just a second. So acres. Remember, when you're talking about acres, this is pretty flat land. You got to think about being able to pull a chicken tractor over this land. Don't talk about your super rocky, or your crazy chaparral, or pulling it through a draw or something. We've pulled chicken tractors on some pretty gnarly land, and it's not very fun. So think about pretty usable land. Let's do 2 examples with the profit. So little farm, kind of little. I don't know, 5 acres, whatever. 5-acre farm. Let's say I'm getting 2 passes. That's pretty doable. I can definitely get 2 passes here. 2 passes might be pretty realistic if you got a really long winter because you're not pulling chicken tractors in the snow usually. So let's say you're able to get 2 passes. I'm pulling this $6 profit per bird out from that cost equation that we did earlier, the profit equation. $5,000 in startup costs, and then I divided the whole thing by 2, right? So I'm just kind of walking you through. I'm not saying this is exactly where you're going to be or any of that stuff, but I'm doing the profit equation through this with 5 acres, 2 passes, $6 a profit a bird, and $5 startup cost. I'll go back and I'll show you that whole thing again. All right, example number 2, kind of a bigger farm, 3 passes, about what we shoot for. We run maybe 20 acres or so, $5 profit per bird. That's actually shooting pretty low. That might be, if you're in the Midwest or somewhere that's only able to tolerate like a $18 bird, or if you're doing completely not organic, maybe like a $14, $15 bird, something like that is the ballpark I'm thinking. So 20 acres, 3 passes, $5 a profit. And since you're a little bigger, I put in $10,000 for your startup costs, $70,000. That's pretty good. Pasture poultry is a great business for a lot of reasons. Number 1, it's not that expensive to get into it. Number 2, you raise a couple cows, you sell a couple half shares, it takes you 2 years to get 4 or 5 customers. You're doing this, even this, 5 acres, you're doing 2 passes a year and all that stuff. You're racking up hundreds of customers in that same amount of time. So think about starting with pasture poultry. I'm not saying that's where you need to end, and that's not the end all to be all, but it's a great place to start because you're picking up a lot of customers. From a soil fertility standpoint, also a great business. They put down a lot of nitrogen. You're able to control that really, really easily. It's a learning curve for sure. I've lost a lot of birds to predators and different things. But in that Salatin system, there's a very defined guidebook on how to do this thing, and it works. I've tried to mess with it and tweak it, and I've come right back to how he teaches it in the book Pasture Poultry Profits. So that's another book that maybe, if you got a lot of production questions on how this thing works, just read that. He'll say it a lot better than I will. I think there's a question. Yes, sir. You're running that by yourself. You're not like hiring people for a 5-acre deal. Yeah. I couldn't tell you how many hours that is, man. That's a good question. I would have to really go back through and look at it. I'm looking at like per day, let's say I've got 4 to 6 pens to pull, which is maybe about what we're talking about on this scale. You're at like maybe an hour per day or something like that, on average, I would say. That's ballpark, kind of shooting from the hip, but hour per day. A lot of the labor is, are you processing yourself or are you sending out to a USDA deal? So that's a big part of it too. I mean, our processing days have gotten really, really fast, but I remember when we first started out, man, and you got YouTube on your iPhone right here and you got the bird right here. Woo! That is not quick. We were doing 10 birds a day back in those days. Now, we got a little crew, 4 to 6, maybe 8 guys, and we're going through 100 birds, 200 birds in an hour. It's not that big of a deal. So he was asking about like the waste. So what kind of stuff are we spinning off that's maybe not being able to use, or how's it being used? In this system, the manure coming out of the birds is the key to the whole system. So they're putting it down onto the pasture, and that pen is moving every single day. So that's like the whole beauty of this thing, is there is no waste in that respect. They bed down inside of the pen on the grass every single night. That is except for the brooder phase. So for those first 2 to 3 weeks, we do a similar thing, big deep bedding, the heat lamps. All you do is you add bedding on top, and then when it gets too high, pull all that wood chip out and throw that on your garden, and it's the best mulch ever. Maybe compost for a while, then throw it on your garden because it'll be hot. Okay, that's kind of my economics of pasture poultry. I want to ask any other questions before we move on. Everybody cool with, this is the key formula right here. I'll put my email address at the end of this, so if you want me to send you slides or anything like that, we can definitely do that. No problem. Now, the big question. So what if I can produce tons of chicken? How the heck do I move it? It's not that easy sometimes, especially depending on where you're at. If you're a one-man show, to try to do all the production, marketing, distribution, everything is a lot. So now we're going to kind of completely shift, and we're going to go into this guerrilla marketing for farms thing. I've got the 13 strategies. I'm going to walk you guys through. I think, depending on our time, we got 30 minutes. We're not going to get through all of them, and just to do them justice, I'd rather pick a couple of them and go a little bit deeper. So when we get to that, I'm just going to ask you guys what you want to talk about, because last time I did the 13 strategies that we use, and it was a full hour, and I went way over, and I felt like I was flying through stuff. So I think I'd rather maybe some of you guys can look at this list for a second, and then let me know what you want to talk about, and we can go through it. So I put together this little online marketing course, and I just copied the yellow straight from that. 13 proven strategies working right now on my pastured livestock farms and farms across the globe. They're affordable and sometimes even profit centers. That's the key. So none of this stuff is venture capital backed me, and I was able to go put together a $200,000 Google AdWords campaign or something like that. That's not where I'm at. That's not where, maybe that's where you're at, but that's not where we're at. Also, time-wise, this built for those of us who can't spend all day on marketing because we have work to do. I'm out there pulling the chicken tractors. I'm out there rotating sheep and doing all that stuff. So I can't sit around on a computer, nor do I want to sit around behind a computer doing marketing all day long. So this stuff works in the budget side and the time side, which if you're farming already, you kind of get where I'm going with that whole thing. But 13 strategies. I think what I'm going to do is I'm just going to, whoever wants to raise their hand first and go for it. What do you want to talk about? Number 1. I like it. Let's start at 1 and see where we get. Website. Guys, website is so critically important, and professional photography is so critically important. It's not that expensive. Everybody in the food movement wants to take pictures of beautiful animals and beautiful products. If they're doing photography already, they'll probably trade you for food because a lot of times foodies are photographers or foodies. So there's no excuse in 2015 to have a crappy website. I think ours looks pretty good. We kind of got it jimmy-rigged from a graphic designer who wanted to buy products from us, and we just ended up doing this crazy trade system with them. If you want, you can go to primalpastures.com. It's fully mobile friendly. It's full shopping cart, inventory tracking system. I'll recommend specific products in this talk because the stuff that I use I really like. So we use Shopify. I think Shopify is awesome. I know there's other websites out there. I'm not saying it's the only one, but Shopify works really, really well for what we do. So this page right here is like our cart page. People just come onto the site here, go into the farm shop, and they can add stuff to their cart, hit the order button, and as long as they're in Southern California, we'll FedEx it to them that week. It's pretty handy. It's pretty simple. One of the things with your website, we have to change ourselves out of this mindset of like people want you. So when we talk about marketing, you're not the most unique snowflake on the mountain. You're not like, you don't like get to determine what your market is. Your market is basically who comes to you. So just keep that mindset. We need to keep this convenient for people, right? We started out doing this, you have to pick up at the farm thing. That's because we were limited by resources. We didn't really know how to do delivery. We didn't know how to do a lot of things. But as soon as we moved into going from farm pickup to drop sites, which we had drop sites at 6 spots throughout Southern California, we could hit them all in one day. It cut people's commute down by an hour and a half in some spots. We were working a little bit more, but we were making it more convenient. Our sales skyrocketed on that deal. Also, we started out with just selling chicken. Once we went to chicken and lamb, all of a sudden people say, oh, I can get a little more meat in my basket. And so it makes it more convenient. So focus on trying to make things convenient for people. It's one of the big flaws I see in permaculture all the time is we just focus so much on making our thing so awesome. We think everybody's going to come flock to what we're doing. It just doesn't happen like that in the real world. So just try to keep that in mind. Convenience is key. Beautiful photography is key. I mean, this stuff's not like beautiful. It's not fine art prints or anything, but you can pay somebody $100 an hour, or you can trade them food or whatever, and they're happy to come out and buy your stuff. Yes, either one. The whole thing's built on Shopify. Another plug for Shopify. I can manage all my inventory from my phone. So if I process 90 birds and I want to add them to my store inventory, I literally just open up my phone, type in the 90, and it adds to that your primal whole chicken deal. It's really, really, really nice. It'll cut people off when the inventory is out. It does all kinds of stuff. So look into Shopify for sure. And I know I don't work for them. This isn't our beef, a big secret, whatever. This is stock photos. So you can buy stock photos for $5 and much better than you sitting there with your iPhone trying to get the lighting right and having it look terrible. Just some things are worth it to buy a stock photo. It's better to make that investment. And I guarantee you I've sold plenty of ground beef just based on the photo alone to make up for the $5 that I spent on the stock photo. I have, yeah, I do. We can talk about Instagram next since you brought it up. But if we're done, are we cool on the website? Ready to move on? All right, let's jump to Instagram since you mentioned that. I think that's sure, yeah, we can run through everything real quick. Instagram, super important. I started out, the whole business was just on Facebook, and Instagram wasn't really that popular yet. Didn't really get the whole thing. Why is it different from Facebook? Why is it whatever? None of that matters. Again, don't think about yourself and how it affects you. Think about how everybody's moving from Facebook to Instagram. That's where the traffic's at. That's where everything's happening now. So If that's where everybody is, that's where you should probably be if you have a consumer good. Instagram's great. It's the easiest marketing tool that I have on the entire farm. You're out doing chores anyways. If you're in here in this room in the permaculture world, you probably have kind of a beautiful setting that you're in. And you think about people that are sitting behind their desk or doing their thing. They love to see the picture of, the sheep pop up or something with a bunch of Girl Scouts that were just out at the farm yesterday. That's awesome for somebody. So this is the easiest thing that you could possibly do. Start putting pictures up on your Instagram, and there's a lot of tactics that I'll go into in detail, like on the online course that I do about different strategies within Instagram, stuff that makes sense, stuff that works, stuff that doesn't work, all the hashtags, who you share it with, who you tag in your photos, what good descriptions are. We'll talk a lot about I think it's like the hook, jab, or jab, hook or something. That idea is you're not selling product across all of your social platforms. This is the case. You're not selling product on every single post that you do. That feels completely like you're being attacked at all times. So the hook, jab, or whatever it's called, is the idea where you're doing, like, I think in the online course I say 4 story building posts for every 1 selling post, or maybe even 9 story building posts for every 1 selling post. So an example of that would be, here's my post from a few hours ago when I was rotating the sheep. Oh yeah, here's how we do the sheep. We mimic nature through rotational grazing. It's good for this reason and that. I'm not selling you anything. I'm just telling you how we do it, inviting you into the story, making you feel like you're part of the farm. Another one, oh yeah, here's the farm tours, blah, blah, blah. We do this thing for the Girl Scouts. We had so much fun. We love having people out. I'm not saying click on this link and we'll take you to our farm tours page where you can buy a farm tour, right? That's kind of implied, but I'm not like sticking that in your face, right? This one, whatever. Oh, cool. Here's a blown up one of it. The sheep are out grazing and they're going to go to slaughter tomorrow, whatever. Nice and fat. Now this was a selling post. So on that one, that I said something like, it was Wednesday morning. We typically cut off orders for that week on Wednesday afternoon at 12. So I put a whole big thing in there. I said, if you put in your order by 12 o'clock today, you have 4 hours. Click on the link in my profile, and I'll take you to the farm shop, and you can place an order. It'll deliver. It'll be on your doorstep tomorrow. So that's a selling post, right? But you got to keep in mind, you don't want to do too many selling posts for the amount of story building posts you do. So it's mostly stories, mostly pretty pictures and all that stuff. And then every once in a while, you mix in the selling post is what I call them, but whatever. Good question. So he's asking about email marketing. How often do you engage? There's a lot of different stories out there about what works for a lot of different people. For me, I'm about once a week. And I kind of try to stick to the same day every week, make it a pretty quick email. I'm not trying to they're not going to read it. So I'm just putting something in their inbox for them to basically skim through and click a link if they want to. Yeah, exactly. And most of my emails are selling emails. So that's another reason I'm not going to email them every single day, because I'm not telling stories through email. I'm kind of getting to the point. Here's the link. Here's the farm shop. We're going to run a special on quarter beefs and include a freezer. We're going to do this and that. Here's a tour coming up. It's kind of no nonsense. So I don't do it too often. But I know there's people that do it every day successfully and people that do it every month. But for us, we do about once a week. Yeah, since we're getting questions about email marketing, I'm going to go back to it, because email marketing for direct-to-consumer sales is the gold standard. I was supposed to give a talk about social media strategies last year, and I started thinking about it, and it was like, social media does not matter compared to your email list. It's all about collecting people's emails and putting something in their inbox. One thing I should have mentioned, on Facebook and Instagram, right now, the rate at which people see it, so we have 10,000 something people on our Facebook, 11,000. I put up a regular post, I don't pay for it, I don't do anything, I may get 400 or 500 people to actually see that post. Kind of similar with Instagram. I think it's a higher, but they don't give you the metrics necessarily. So with email, if I have your email address and I send you an email, it is going to your inbox. I can guarantee that the person will see that email every single time. They might not open it, they might just delete it, but they will at least see that every single time. So that's why this, for direct-to-consumer sales, having some kind of way to collect email addresses and send out nice templated emails consistently is the gold standard. You have to have that. So I'm not saying number 2 because it's the number 2 most important. These are just like kind of in the order they came to my head, but email is really important. MailChimp is a company that I use. They have a really cool integrative platform with Shopify. I can just put a deal up on there, and the customers type in their email address, and they're on my mailing list really easily. I think we have almost 5,000 people or so on our mailing list, and so that is the number one revenue profit generator for the whole farm. Response rates on email, man, it can vary. A lot of it depends on stuff as simple as how you worded the title in your email, what your subject line looked like, what day, what time of the day that you sent it. So it's pretty finicky. It's something I'm definitely still learning how to do. So I would say opens are something like in the 50% range, clicks are something like in the 20 to 30% range on average, something like that. But I can send out an email, and people, like, this is our main once a month big email that goes out. Click on the farm store, and I'm not like trying to brag by any means at all, but this is just the way our business works. So instead of sitting around at a farmer's market for 8 hours, driving 2 hours to get there, setting up for 2 hours, and then driving 2 hours to get home, and maybe making $500 or $600 at the farmer's market, I can sit in the comfort of my computer, watching my animals graze, and send out that email, and then go home and hang out with my family, and $10,000, $20,000 can roll in the next couple hours, right? So that's a better strategy to me. That's sustainable. That's permaculture, using technology to me. I will definitely go over, as you asked for, I'll do a quick summary of everything. Kickstarter. This is a sad presentation here, right? Kickstarter is not what you think it is. We ran a Kickstarter in August 2013. We generated almost $60,000, and we had almost 700 backers on that Kickstarter. I probably made $5 an hour, but it was worth it. So I'll unpack that whole thing, but Kickstarter is something that I like to talk about a lot. Kickstarter is a marketing tool. It is not an effective method of raising capital. Okay, if you need capital and you don't care about the marketing, you're not willing to put in the time, go ask your friends or family for money, or go get a bank loan, or go get a job. This is not a good way to raise capital. It's not efficient. What it is the best marketing tool that I've ever had for our business in the history of time, right? $5 an hour is not great unless I pull up the list of who picked us up, from Huffington Post to MSN to AOL to all the local papers and the national papers. It was insane. It was the best marketing that I've ever had. Sorry? Oh, really? That's cool. Did you back us? Nice. Thank you. Seriously. Oh, you got free chickens for a year? Have you cashed them in yet? All right, good. Kickstarter's crazy, man. A couple benchmark numbers that I'll give you. I spent 40 hours a week for a month before, 40 hours a week a month during, and 40 hours a week for the month after we did our Kickstarter. That's on top of running a farm. I did not sleep very much. There was copious amounts of caffeine consumed to maintain that pace, and it was pretty miserable, to be honest with you. But a lot came of it. So a couple of the basic tenets of Kickstarter. First of all, you've got to have a great video. I haven't seen too many Kickstarters do very well that had a crappy video. It goes back to that professional photography thing. Pay somebody to come out and shoot it well. It's well worth your time. Or be more creative / cash strapped like we were. And we actually found somebody that was willing to work for a percentage of what we raised on Kickstarter. So if we had raised nothing, they would have got nothing. But I think they were at like 10% of whatever we raised. That's what we gave them. So they got something like $6,000 for shooting the video, which is actually pretty good. I'd encourage you to go on and look at that video. It's done really, really well. It definitely brings people into the story. It's all about you, not all about us. And that's the whole point. Bring people into your story, make them a part. We called the whole thing, Let's Build a Farm Together. We didn't say Primal Pastures is starting a farm. There's a big difference in that, right? So people felt like, hopefully they felt like, they were becoming part of this thing that was happening in their community, which is a big deal on Kickstarter. Reason why Kickstarter is not the best, so like he said, one of our rewards was a chicken every month for a year for like $250. That's obviously not doable on a national or international scale, whereas maybe like a documentary or a video game or something, anybody in the entire world has access to that product. It's not really the same with local, kind of handcraft goods like this. We can't ship chicken to China or something like that. So it limits you a little bit. But again, this number, 57,810, is not what you should really look at for Kickstarter. It's the one right above it, 690 backers or the 50,000 video views that we had in like 30 days. That's really where it was at. And that was a huge, just absolutely huge uptick for our business in that. Yeah, we were pushing it like crazy. We had a lot of bloggers and different people pushing it like crazy. We could talk about the blogs too if you guys want. That's an important piece. But yeah, we were pushing it. Yeah. Here's one quote that I really like. Dig your well before you're thirsty. So for the 40 hours before, you're reaching out to everybody and their mom. So anybody with any reach at all, bloggers, news outlets, anybody you can think of, you're reaching out saying, hey, I'm going to be doing this thing. I hope you take a look at it, be a part of it. When we're ready to launch it, I'd love to be able to share it with you. One of the big things with email, with busy people, they're not going to read every single email that they get. But if they're reading something that has a reply stamp on it, they're something like 8 to 10 times more likely to open that up. So for a lot of my emails that I sent to big bloggers and big names, we had already talked a little bit before. So it had that big reply sticker on it. And they said, oh, I must have talked to this guy, so it must be worth it. The marketing was a huge part of it. I said, there's no way that I'm going to make this mistake of getting backer rewards out late, like everybody does. There's no way I'm going to do it, right? So I did all my work up ahead of time. Had our T-shirts completely printed. I just had to hit one green button that said order, and that had the quantity. Everything was dialed from our rewards. I was still 3 months late on getting rewards out. If you do this thing right, you are so busy afterwards. 40 hours a week is probably an understatement. You're fulfilling orders from 700 new people. You're responding to tons of media that still wants to cover you that you didn't have time to during the thing. You're trying to run your farm still or whatever you're still doing. It's the busiest time ever. So we were still 3 months late, even though I had all that stuff done. And it was like kind of a nightmare, actually, trying to get all the rewards fulfilled, do all that stuff, because that's a bad first impression. You go to all that work to get a new customer, and then you send out a reward 3 months late, especially if it's wrong or if it's a little bit messed up. That's not good. You're not making the best first impression on that deal. So if you are going to do a Kickstarter, do every single thing that you can ahead of time so that when it's over, you've got time to respond to the media, to continue on with your farming, all that stuff, and to take advantage of all the new media you've got. First of all, this picture is how not to do a farm tour. So do not let little kids in with sheep that are all scared of little kids, because one of them will get knocked down, okay? And you see this guy in the back, Mom, what's that guy doing? That part of it's okay, but you don't want kids getting knocked down. Seriously, that's not a good thing. Farm tours are like the lifeline, the blood of the new customers for our business. We charge money for them. So again, this is not a marketing expense. This is a marketing revenue item and a profit item, because there's really no cost in bringing people out to the farm. Every month, we have 2 tours of 60 that sell out completely in advance. They're totally booked. We charge $5 per person, which is not a lot, but it's a great, for a family of 4 can come out for $20, and they're out there for 2 hours, and they get entertained. They love seeing the animals. They meet a lot of other really cool people. We kind of show them everything, and it's a really good experience for the family. And then at the end of the tour, we end right at the on-farm stand, and we sell them some product. A lot of times we'll sell $1,000, $2,000 worth of product on site. And the key is not so much that you make money on these farm tours, which is an added bonus, but once somebody's been out to your farm, once they've stepped foot on your farm, they've seen it, they've shook your hand, they say that's their farm for the rest of their life, right? So you earned that customer. And I see it. When I go out to somebody else's farm, I see it, I trust it, it's awesome. One of the things we talk about a lot is food labeling. Complete BS a lot of the times, right? So cage-free, free-range, grass-fed, all that stuff's garbage, if you didn't already know. This is how you beat it, right? And this is why local food matters, because locally, you can come out and you can see this thing, you can inspect what you expect, and you can get your hands on it and do it the right way. So that's why, local food, I would take quality over local any day of the week, right? But this is why local really, really matters, because you can go out and see it. And when somebody has actually seen this, like I said, they're going to be a customer for a long time. We're not certified, and that's a huge way that we do it. So he's asking if we're certified organic. This is one of the reasons why we're not. We don't need to be. So everything we do is way beyond organic, but instead of spending $3,000 a year to get certified, why not get paid $13,000 a year to bring people out to the farm and to show them how we're organic? You know what I mean? Never. We've never joined any certifying body at all, and maybe to a fault even. So It may be. I don't know. We've been flying on our own radar for a long time. We're independent operators, kind of. We really like what we do. We really believe in it. Better than joining the American Grass-Fed and perusing the forums, bring 50 people out to your farm, and I guarantee you one of them will be 10 times smarter than you are. I've learned so much myself on doing these farm tours from people that know what they're talking about. It's insane. It's like getting a class every time I do one of these. In the beginning, it was really heavy on Facebook. So we did a lot of our stuff on Facebook, really try to encourage people to tag their friends, encourage them to invite somebody out to the farm tour, all that stuff. But now, this is the kind of thing that spreads virally by word of mouth. So if you have 50 people come out and, call it 49 of them have a really great time, except for the one girl who got knocked down, maybe she's not too happy, you're going to have 250 people interested in your next farm tour because they heard great things from all these people. So you kind of have to do something to get the thing started. Maybe that's, I talk about doing speaking engagements, going out and meeting the public and all that. Maybe it's something like that. Maybe you'll have luck on Facebook, just sharing it with your personal friends to start. But once you kind of get the engine started, then the word of mouth takes over and you're fine. Okay, so we create a product on our Shopify website. They buy that product. That's basically their $5 deposit for the farm tour. That way, whether they show up or not, it's not that I don't care, but I've collected the money, so I'm not out if they've showed up or not. I set the quantity cap to 60 because I knew that's how much parking we could afford at the old ranch. It's really seamless. It's pretty easy. Yeah, so 2 hours. They show up probably first 15 to 20 minutes. It's just fellowship, man. It's people getting to know each other. We're walking around just talking, chit-chatting, whatever. At about the 20-minute mark, we make the announcement, all right, we're going to start the tour. We bring them up onto a beautiful vista at our old farm where it overlooks some wineries and stuff. And we tell them the story about how we started, all the different things that we did and some of the mistakes and all that. We do a little bit of a giveaway. So we always do like whoever came from the farthest and whoever came from the closest get a free dozen eggs just for fun to kind of lighten the mood. And then we walk through each different thing. So starting with the baby chicks to the adult chicks to the layers to the sheep to the cow, and we explain pretty detailed how we do every specific thing. And it's not like it's not a petting zoo. It's pretty educational time. So that's more or less it. And then we end again, maybe 20 minutes of just chit chatting and talking on the back end, sell some product, and then people go home. It's a good deal. Good, really fun day actually. It's a good question. So I think I spend 30% of my time out in the grass farming. Other than that, it's not all 70% marketing. Obviously, it's other business stuff, admin, doing meetings, doing all kinds of stuff up and down the coast or whatever. But of that marketing, maybe 20% of like a 60-hour week, if I had to make a guess at it right now. They're openly illegal. Yeah, I mean, look how horrifying that is, right? To have people out there. Yeah, we should all go to jail for doing that. So, no, it's super fun, but it is illegal. We just do it anyways. As we grow, we stop doing as many illegal things, right? So there's a little bit more on the line now. With two families taking income off the farm and stuff, we can't do as much illegal stuff. But this is like too fun to not do. So we sell these tickets, I'm not kidding you, $65 per person for breakfast. And they sell out really fast. My sister is here. She's a really, really amazing chef. She does like a 3-course, awesome breakfast. Everybody sits out on the pasture. The animals are out grazing. Their kids are playing. They eat a really good meal. Most of everything's grown on the farm. And then, it's not just breakfast. It's like a 2-hour thing, and people hang out for a long time. So, but I had this question last time, how do you legally do that? And I kind of tiptoed around it, but the answer is I don't. It's illegal. So, but it's like worth it. It's really, really cool. Chicken tractors would be a little bit different. I think I have a picture. I'll show you a chicken tractor afterwards. But that's the egg-laying style chicken tractor that we call Eggmobile. The other ones are the meat bird style chicken tractors, Salatin tractors, kind of. Yes. You cannot prepare food without a commercially licensed kitchen, for one. For two, let's see, there's probably like 3 or 4 different ways that it's illegal, to be honest with you. Yeah, I don't think that you're allowed to do any kind of eating on a food production facility, which would be a farm, would be another one. And I'm guessing there's like probably more things than that. But mostly we're not preparing food in a commercial kitchen, which can be skirted around if you have a food truck. So if you want to do events on your farm, I don't know about serving people food on a production facility. I don't know how to get around that yet. But I know you can bring a food truck out to your farm and you can have them cook because that's a certified kitchen. They can also sell booze out of it, which is awesome sometimes. And it's fun. It's cool. She's asking about some bill that was passed to certify your home kitchen. There might be. I'm not aware of it yet. I'll tell you what. He asked if you can designate a specific spot. If the feds come, that's what I'm going to say we did, for sure. Okay? There's a new bill, and this is our spot for breakfast. So you guys go away. We have, partnering on stuff. That's another thing I talk about in some of the other ones. I wish I had time, but partnering with other local businesses are kind of like-minded. We've had cases and cases of wines delivered for these things for our farm tours. We have a local CSA program that does all organic. We give away a couple boxes of CSA and talk about their program a little bit. It's there's not that many people doing stuff the way that we in this room are doing it. So if you can find other folks like you, even if they're not hardcore permaculturists or anything, if they're a small business, if they're kind of reasonably in line with what you do, try to partner with them. It's a great way to grow your company. Sure. I think I'll talk to you about that afterwards, unless everybody wants to, because it's not really relevant, but I'm happy to talk about that stuff for sure. Yeah. Yes. I'm glad you asked that question. So when we started this thing, we said we're going to be selling to 100,000 and up income. We're going to be selling to LA, Orange County, San Diego. These are going to be the people that have the money to buy this kind of stuff. Like I said, $25 to $29 chicken is a lot of money, and we totally get that. As it turns out, our average demographic's probably making $60,000 a year. A lot of times it's the mom or the dad that's buying. A lot of times they'll have a family where they're trying to really survive. $60,000, I don't know where you're from, but in Southern California, you're living in a small house for $60,000 a year for your total family income. I was shocked. It's people that prioritize this stuff, over having a big house or over having super fancy car or anything like that. So we're really mindful on our price. It's actually a little bit insulting. A lot of times people think we're just totally sticking it to everybody and making this high margin. We're at about a 40% margin, which is good, but it's not like we're making millions off this company by any means. So our demographic is not what I thought it was. It's the average working person for sure. Yeah. Yes. So we started out doing farm pickup. We moved to delivery sites, which was a lot of great face-to-face time where we met every single customer. Then we moved to do an actual home delivery where we would load up sedans full of meat and drive them around once a month, and it was ridiculous. I'd be sitting next to pork chops next to my face and try to pack the whole car full of stuff. Really. And then now we're on to FedEx. So we've really met our customers for 2.5 years since we started this thing and gotten to know a lot of my best friends. My wife and I's best friends are our customers and stuff. So we really know them really, really well. We still have farm pickup, but it's 5% of the business. Okay, I'm going to do a quick overview of everything. And if we have time to hit another one at the end, we will. So we did farm websites, email marketing, speaking engagements are great. It's one way to drum up a lot of new people talking about you. There's a lot of different ways. You're probably involved in something. Maybe it's Weston A. Price Foundation. Maybe it's a local CrossFit group. Maybe it's a diet club or a mom's club or anything. They're always looking for good speakers. It's not going to hurt you at all to reach out, send an email. You'll probably get rejected 9 times out of 10. That's marketing. But the one that does, maybe it's a group of 50 moms that all have kids that want to be eating healthier or something. So getting blogged about, huge one. Again, this is not 9 times out of 10 you're rejected. It's 99 times out of 100 you're rejected. Bloggers are very, very busy people. It's not that they don't like what you're doing or they don't care about what you're doing, but they're just really busy. They're not probably going to see your email. So especially in the beginning, especially when we're doing Kickstarter, we're emailing people a lot. Here's what we're doing. If you'd be willing to write about us, I'd love to send you some free sample of product or something. That's one exception where I'll ship anywhere in the country if somebody has a nice blog that they'd be willing to review our product. They get free food out of it. We get some nice publicity out of it. Getting blogged about has been how we built our business, basically, by other people talking about us. Guest blogging, really, really important. I guess I can click through these, although they're not that relevant. This one in particular, guest blogging is when somebody doesn't write about you, but you write about your thing and they post it on their website. That's a great way to do it too. This specific one right here, Mark's Daily Apple is the number 5 health site in the world. I just shot them an email on a whim and they happened to respond. They said, yeah, I would love to have you share your story. So it was called From an Auditor's Cubicle to a Real Life Shepherd, My Primal Success Story. And I talked about how I went from doing accounting to full-time farming. And this was in the middle of our Kickstarter. So if you see a Kickstarter, typically they're big jump in the middle, you make a lot of money, and then it flattens out for 27 days, and then it's a big hit at the end. This happened on day 15 to 30, and we made $20,000 in one day from this one article. It was insane. He has 160,000 unique visitors every day. So it's a big, big site. And it was a random email. I mean, I didn't know. I figured he would have rejected me. But yeah, I mean, and even better than that, you could confirm or deny, but a press kit, which is a simple Dropbox with some nice high-resolution photos, a totally written-out article where they can just take it, plug it in. These are busy people. People don't realize bloggers aren't sitting around all day, taking whatever. They're really busy. I know most of the bloggers that I know that do well are working 15-plus hours a day. So make it easy on them. Make it convenient. Remember, it's not all about you. It's about them. So try to keep that in mind. It might have been a necessary building block. So she said if you hadn't started with FedEx, or if you hadn't started with the personal aspect of the business, could you even do the FedEx? She's probably right. We had to be able to build that business first before really being able to go to FedEx only model for sure. I'm going to go really quick through these last few. Eat Wild, great site, $50, done $20,000 a year in revenue off of this site. Do it. Kickstarter, farm tours. Potluck. I have to mention this one because we have a potluck. If you live anywhere close to here, these are not your average potlucks. Next Saturday, March 14th, 2 to 6 p.m., free tickets. Type in friend of Primal at the checkout and come to our potluck. We already have 200 tickets sold. I think we have parking for I say 400, Rob. My brother says 300. So we're going to see. We're going to pack the house. Our customers are the best chefs in the world, so you don't want to miss. This is not your church potluck. This is like the best food ever. Potlucks are awesome, really low capital. They pay to bring food. It's amazing. Lastly, workshops are amazing. We do chicken processing workshops, teach people how to kill their own chicken. $65, believe it or not, they're sold out every single time. They get to take home their own bird. It's actually a really cool experience. Sounds like a lot, I know, but people pay it, so.
There you have it, Farmer Paul Greive of Primal Pastures. If you want to follow along with everything that they're doing, be sure to check them out on Instagram. They have 2 accounts, Primal Pastures and Pasture Bird. You can follow along with their accounts and see how they're marketing their birds via social media. And if you want the chance to learn more from Paul, be sure to check out the Growing Your Farm Business Mastermind Workshop, which is coming up in March here at Primal Pastures in Southern California. This is a unique look at a farm that has grown from small to big very quickly. If you compare Darby's operation to Primal Pastures, they're really at 2 ends of the spectrum when it comes to small-scale farming, because Darby's relatively small compared to what Primal's doing, and they're huge compared to what Darby's doing. So if you're looking to scale up, take things to the next level, go big, here's an opportunity to learn from someone who did that. They started small, they grew their business strategically, and they now have gone big and continue to have their sights set on bigger and better things. The workshop puts you in front of Paul, both on farm and in the classroom, where he's going to go through everything from production to marketing to sales. There's a whole bunch coming at you. Learn more about that workshop at grassfedlife.co. That's all for this one. Thanks for listening. I'll be having a lot more episodes coming up with Paul over the next few weeks. I hope you enjoy them. I hope you get a lot out of them. But until they arrive, thanks for listening, and be nice, be thankful, and do the work.